Hello everyone, my name is Posianadius Bernike and my ID number is 33210134.
Hello, my name is Patimah Nabilah and my ID number 33210063.
Hello, my name is Maria Mude and my ID 33210093.
So today we want to present our result of project meeting 13 about contemporary narrative poem. So let's start from slide 1. Narrative poem is narrative poem definition, a form of literature that combines the elements of poetry with the element of storytelling. Narrative poetry is the oldest form of poetry and one of the oldest literary forms. Contemporary poetry is a style of poetry that follows a specific series of traits and literary tools. Inconsistent matter, variations upon standard rhyme. Poets writing in this style allow their ink to place a unique sense of self upon the words, making every poet's story special.
Types of narrative poems. Epic. Epic poems are long narrative poems that usually tell stories of heroism. Ballad. Among narrative poems, the ballad is more modern than most forms, although it develops little. The word idyllic describes something reminiscent of rural and pastoral life. Is a narrative poem that celebrates, describes, and explores rural life. Idyllic poems are usually short, but still build a narrative, and often a group of idyllists will be strung together to form a larger story. Common Lay is a rather long narrative poem, like other forms of poetry. Developed over the poem depicts a story of romance, courtesy, and emotional experience.
Characteristic of narrative poetry. Emphasis on storytelling. Narrative poetry conveys the plot, setting, character, and other key elements of the story. Second, experimental language. Surprising, fun, fascinating, riveting, moving, inspiring, and or captivating readers. 3. Nonlinear story structure. Narrative poetry rarely apa ini? For a single narrative or linear structure. These poems may jump forward or backward in time, start in the middle, or traits completely different even before combining them into one unified story.
Contemporary form, you may notice that no two types of narrative poetry are written in the same way. Each has its own form, and the form depends on the story of the poem, the year it was written, and the region it was written. Contemporary narrative poetry tend to be free first. Mythological elements. Most narrative poems written in the ancient times revolve around mythology. Even some contemporary examples, such as Anne Carson's Red Autobiography. Internal characterization Characterization. Many narrative poems look at internal elements. This form of poetic language allows readers to capture thoughts, feeling, and internal challenge that prose may not capture well. Novel. Modern in rhyme is usually told from the first person or from a very limited third person point of view.
What is a contemporary poem? By definition, contemporary poetry is a style of poetry that follows a specific series of traits and literary tools. Inconsistent matter, variation upon standard rhyme. Poets writing in this style allow their ink to place a unique sense of self upon the words, making every poet's story special. In Indonesia, there are several figures who initiate the emergence of contemporary poetry forms, including 1. Sutarji Kalzum Bakri, famous for his works O Amuk and O Amuk Kapak. 2. Ibrahim Satah, famous for the poetry collection Haiti. 3. Hamid Jabar, famous for the poetry collection Wajah Kita.
Characteristic of the contemporary poetry. Contemporary poetry has a unique form of writing or typography. Contemporary poetry has the freedom to divide in the writing of both lines and stanza. Provision of poetry in general. Contemporary poetry usually creates a sound jam that is almost undeniable. This is because of the poem is something just a question mark than is a legend. Contemporary poetry usually use unusual or unconventional idiom. Contemporary poetry pays more attention to the sonority of the sound. Poetry usually has a lot of repetition of word, phrase, and groups of words that are not natural. Contemporary poetry usually mixes Indonesian word or sentence with other language sentence, both from foreign language and from regional language. Contemporary poetry usually uses the parallelism language style with a combination language style.
Silent element of contemporary poetry. The element of sound, the emphasis of rhyme and repetition. The element of typography, a technique of arranging lines and stanza as well as the way letters are written. Enjambment, the, the transition of sentence of praise in poetry, humor, funny words used to make people laugh.
B. Types of contemporary poetry. 1. Mantra poetry. Mantra poetry is one type of poetry that has an attachment to all poetry, namely mantras. Mantra poetry was revived and first introduced to many people by the poet Sutarji Kalzum Bahri. The characteristic of this mantra poem are A. Mantra poetry is present to create a certain effect. B. Mantra poetry is used to connect with the world of mystery. C. Mantra poetry can provide efficacy effects.
Two, mumbling poem. The word mumbling itself comes from the Javanese language which means naughty or angry. There are three characters of mumbling poetry, namely, mumbling poems usually contain social criticism for the government. B. Mumbling poetry can also be used to make satire to other types of poetry. The poet of mumbling poetry prioritizes and elements of the jokes without any impact element.
So the next, we're going to analyze about the poetry happiness epidemic. Without any warning, the disease sweeps across the country like a traveling circus. People who were once blue, who slouched from carrying a bag of misery over the shoulder, are now clinically cheerful. Symptoms include kind gestures, a bunchy stride, a smile, bigger than a slice of cantaloupe. You pray that you will be infected, hope a happy germ infects your body, and multiple spreading merriment to all your major organs, like door-to-door Christmas carolers, until the virus finally reaches your heart. That red house at the end of the block where your deepest wishes reside, where a dog falls behind a gate every time that sorrow pulls his hears up the driveway, by David Hernandez.
Intrinsic element, themes in the poem, hope of happiness, imagery, visual imagery and kinesthetic imagery. Visual imagery is found in stanza 3 and 6 where the lyrics are that red house at the end of the block and the whole poem depict kinesthetic imagery. Rhyme of poetry. Rhyme freely rhymes. Symbol of poetry. Paradise hope of happiness, however, is not felt. Connotative diction. Because in the lyrics of the poem, the author does not give a message directly.
The tone of the lyric voice in the poem contains and set meaning figure of speech. Hyperbole in the poetry has many meanings expressed by the exaggerated word elation. Mood, sadness, hope, and pleasure. The message of this poem is the hope of happiness coming in the others' life in order to share happiness with others.
Extrinsic elements. David Hernandez was born in Burbank, CA in 1971. His first passion was drawing on the unpainted walls of the playroom. He expressed himself with a box of crayons. His love of art continued until college at California State University, Long Beach, and it was here that his infatuation with poetry began, earning a BA in creative writing. He works full-time as a web designer, but still carves out time to write. His poems have appeared in the Southern Review, Prairie Schooner, Cream City Review, Quarterly West, Alaska Quarterly Review, and Mississippi Review. His drawings have also appeared in literary magazines, including Other Voice, Gurley, and a feature in Indiana Review. A recipient of a grant from the Ludwig Falk-Lichtenstein Foundation, his profuse chapbook collection includes Man Climbs Out a Manhole, Pearl editions, and Donation the Heart Pudding House Publications, winner of the National Looking Glass Chapbook Competition. David is married to writer Lisa Glade. Their collection of collaborative poems, A Merciful Bed, was published by Pearl Edition.
David Hernandez is the recipient of a 2011 Yale Literature Fellowship in Poetry. His recent collection Holy won the Catherine A. Morton Prize and is forthcoming from Sarabande Book this August. His other collection include Always Danger, Sea Press, 2006, winner of the Crab Orchard series in the poetry and A House Waiting for Music, Tupelo Press, 2003. His poems have appeared in Philip Plowshares, the Three Penny Review, the Missouri Review, Three Quarterly, the Southern Review, and Poetry Daily. He is also the author of two YA novels, No More Use for You and Sucker Punch, but published by HarperCollins. David teaches at the University of California, Irvine. He lives in Long Beach and he's married to writer Lisa. David Hernandez, born in 1970, is an American poet and novelist. Most recently, he was awarded a 2011 National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship for Poetry.
His father, James Hernandez, migrated from Colombia to the United States at a young age. His mother, Nancy Cornejo, is originally from Chile. David is the descendant of a long line of the poets dating back to the Gambia family, and he was included in the book Los Gamboa, una dinastía de poetas, published in the book has five David poems translated in Spanish by the book's author Hugo Cuevas Moore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss. Bye-bye.